Do you realize that there is something that God has prepared for you, but if you don't see that thing by revelation, you'll go without it? Something changes on the inside of you when you realize God has destined for me to have this. God has destined for me to be in this place, in this particular position. When you are assured of what you believe that God has called you to do in the earth, where He's called you to be. Listen, I am what God says I am. I can do what God says I can do. I can have what God says I can have. Listen, we're called to be above only and not beneath, to be the head and not the tail. And let me just say this to you. You cannot be a head and think like a tail. You have to have a clear understanding on the inside as to who you are. This thing comes by the spirit of wisdom and revelation, a spirit of seeing and knowing. Seeing and knowing, seeing and knowing. Paul was praying for them that they would have a spirit of revelation so they could see themselves the way God sees them. If you really want to honor somebody, if somebody dies in your life, then you ought to become the man or the woman that that person saw you to be. It's the greatest way to honor them. Become the man or the woman that that person saw you to be. It's the greatest way to honor them. But you cannot be something that you don't know, and so this is why Paul is praying for them, that the spirit of wisdom, of seeing and knowing, having an understanding of what the inheritance is from God in the saints. There's an inheritance for you. But if you don't realize that, you will live beneath your privilege and you'll be sitting on the banks instead of taking possession of what God has already provided for your life. And if you stay where you are, you'll have what you have. It's just the bottom line. If you stay where you are, you'll have what you have. But it takes action. It really takes action. If you take action, you'll find out what God has prepared for you. And you'll discover that God has gifts for you. He's got abilities that are latent already in your life. There are talents in your life. There's something He's already given you an intelligence. Use it. Love God with your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Did you notice the Bible says love God with your mind? Don't leave your brain at home when you come to church. Love God with your mind. Love Him with your mind. Love Him with your mind. That's a part of the inheritance. And some saints need to be quickened to that. You know, they just think that it's all about emotion. It's all about your body. No. You love God with all of your mind. Your mind. Your heart and your strength. Your life will never rise above the level of your thinking. Love God with your mind, your intelligence. God has given you energy. You have to understand that's part of what's a part of your inheritance. It's energy. What good is it to have plans and dreams and vision and you have no energy to fulfill it? That's why you got to do what you can do while you got the energy to do it. It's a part of the inheritance. It's like God says, I've given you this energy. You got all of this energy. I wonder what in the world is wrong with so many folks in our younger generation that have this hyperactivity disorder. Energy. Attention deficit disorder, energy. And they got all of this energy, but they don't know what to do. Maybe there's an inheritance. Maybe there's a reason that God gave you a lot of energy. You know, to whom much is given, much is also much is required. And so don't just be bottled up with all of this energy, running back and forth and then doing nasty stuff with the energy when God has designed it and anointed you for energy, for purpose. Maybe you're supposed to go and to do some really good stuff in a lot of different people's lives, but if you cannot see it and don't have the spirit of wisdom and revelation to understand what the inheritance that God has placed in your life, there's a reason that you have the energy that you have. I don't know who that was for, but I just pray that God will speak to you and quicken in your heart, that you'll begin to have a hunger after Him, that you'll pursue Him, that you'll be in hot pursuit of Him when God says, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future, Jeremiah 29:11. There's something that God has for you. You cannot walk in it unless you can see it. This is why Paul was praying for them. God has given you influence. What are you doing with it? Influence. You know, I teach leaders in various places around the world, and I asked one man, I said, I just asked him, I said, what qualifies you to be a leader? And he said, I have 13 followers on Twitter. I said, bless your heart. You know that God has given you also relationships? You'd be surprised how people have things and they refuse to use them. How long will you neglect to possess the land which the Lord your God has given you? He's given you ideas. He's given you inventions, businesses, books, record deals. There's so many things that are part of your promised land, your place of inheritance in the earth. And God is simply saying to you, how long will you neglect to possess the land that I've given you?